guys, it's Molly here again for another video, and you can probably tell that I'm not alone. I have my friend Ricky Pointer here with me.
Hey.
Ricky has her own channel. Ricky is a deaf YouTuber and activist. I will link her channel down below. She's the person that inspired me to start doing some closed captioning on some of my videos. This video is one of those videos that will be closed captioned. We also did a video on Ricky's channel about how deafblind people communicate with each other, because obviously we're here, we're communicating, we're friends, we're doing just fine. So to learn how we do that, I'll link that video down below. Subscribe to her channel. She's fantastic. I love her. She's pretty great. So today we're doing a video on my channel about basically deaf versus blind. So growing up as a deaf person versus growing up as a blind person. And we got some requests, and then we got some topics that we had decided on we thought were important to chat about. So do you want to start talking about kind of one of the requests we got was the things like the whisper challenge or the blindfolded makeup challenge that all of these able-bodied YouTubers do that kind of simulate being blind or being deaf, and kind of our opinions on them. So what is your opinion on
Yeah, so basically if you don't know what the whisper challenge is, I think there might be a few variations of it, but the one that I'm most familiar with is people have headphones on. I don't know if they have music on or what, but you know, they'll have, you know, their ears covered with possible music on, and then the person will, you know, talk, and then they try to guess. So basically, it's like a lip reading challenge, but with...
Or kind of like the game of telephone, like when you're
yeah,
a kid,
oh god, yeah.
That was probably your least favorite game growing up?
Oh god, biology class, we're gonna play telephone, and I'm like,
I'm gonna ruin the game!
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, so I actually made a video about this like a year and a half ago, but I made it private because I feel like my opinion on it has kind of changed just ever so slightly. Like, I think for the most part it's kind of about approach.
Yeah.
But at the same time I'm kind of like, nah, like if you really want to do a challenge like this, you might want to be a little more realistic about it. Like, I don't really like this happens in ASL classes and I feel like this is ridiculous. But you would be better off like sticking earplugs in your ears instead of like having earphones with music blasting, you know, the whole time. But yeah, before a year and a half ago I was like, oh my god, I do this all the time, and here kids are, you know, laughing about it and, you know, blah blah blah. But if this was like in real life, if I didn't understand what you were saying most of the time, the reactions are like, oh my god, you didn't understand me, okay, never mind, whatever, I'm just gonna, you know, walk away. So that's when it really gets annoying. So I guess it really depends on who does it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know if I'm watching you, like if I know you've done the whisper challenge before and you laughed about it and then you're gonna treat me like, you know, poop because I didn't understand what you're gonna say, I'm gonna call you out on that.
Yeah. Like if you're like, oh, I just won't bother talking to her because she can't understand what I'm saying. It's like, you should have, if you did the whisper challenge, you should have gained some respect for how difficult it is.
Exactly. That's kind of what it is. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it, whatever, but it's just the approach about it.
I agree. Like, when I see YouTubers do the blindfolded makeup challenge or no mirror makeup challenge, I'm like, and they're just going on about how it's like so impossible and so difficult. I feel like they're like they're making it so dramatic. I'm like, I literally do my makeup without a mirror, without looking every single day of my life. And I get that I do it every day, so for me it has become easier. But even when I first, like, I feel like they just get so dramatic about how it's just impossible. I'm
oh
like,
my god,
it's not impossible.
We're gonna die.
I know. I'm like, stop being over dramatic. It's not impossible. And I do think it's all about the approach, like when they're being realistic about it and when they're being respectful and recognizing that some people like us do go through life as if there's headphones on our ears and can't hear properly, and some people do our makeup without being able to look. Like, it is possible, and when you be respectful when you're making these videos and recognize that some of your viewers who are watching it might not be able to hear well or might not be able to see. Like, it's all about the approach and not making it like so over dramatic and almost like disrespectful to the communities of people who do actually have to live their life that way.
Yeah.
So I feel like we probably have a pretty similar opinion on it, that it's like, it's cool to do, but just like be respectful when you're doing it.
It's like, it's not the end of the world, but you know, like if we see it at that time, you know, we're gonna make a comment about it, and then like, okay, 5 minutes later, okay, fine, what's this issue here?
Every mirrorless makeup challenge I have commented on about how I do it every day, I just get like hundreds of replies being like, you're not blind, you're typing. I'm like, oh god. All of the people who like the misconceptions that are out there and the lack of lack of knowledge, which is
Oh.
why we make these videos, right?
Yes.
Okay, so some of the other topics we thought we would talk about are things like education. So how being blind affected my education growing up and the accommodations that I need, and then how being deaf affected kind of your education, what accommodations you need.
Yeah,
So,
and keep in mind that this is all, from personal experience. Of course, there's like there's 38 to 48 million people who are deaf and hard of hearing in the United States alone. So, every
it's different for everyone.
Different.
Yeah.
But, there's always going to be like a group of people who have the same experiences. So, just keep that in mind. So, I started first. So, you want to talk about school first?
Yeah, so for me, growing up, I had an EA, so an educational assistant, and a vision itinerant, or a VI teacher. So my EA would be with me 50% of the time. So in Canada, it depends on the amount of vision you have. So some people who have more vision get less support simply because they don't need as much support. And then people like me, so because I grew up more significantly visually impaired, I had 100% support, which means 50% of my time I had an EA, 50% of my time I had a vision itinerant. So I had a one-on-one teacher with me at all times, pretty much, which in some ways I liked, but in other ways was really frustrating because it just made me different. It made me stand out in school. Everybody was like, oh, she's the girl with the teacher sitting beside her. We don't want to talk to her. So that was frustrating. And one of my vision itinerants, people actually thought was my mom. I guess she looked similar to me, so people thought I brought my mom to school with me. And I was like, oh, no.
And I don't think that would be legal in a way.
Yeah.
So,
obviously it's something I needed in order to get my education, my vision itinerant would translate everything from print to braille or from small print to large print, and she would help me just get the accommodations I need and help the teacher understand my situation when I was at an age that was too young to be able to explain it or advocate for myself. So it was obviously something that was necessary for me to have, but at the same time it was frustrating at times.
For me, I was one of the very many, deaf kids that grew up mainstream, so I went to a public school with, a crap ton of hearing kids. So I was probably, one of the only deaf kids there. I was probably the only one. But, so I didn't really get diagnosed officially until I was 12, and even for a couple of years after that, I didn't really, pay attention to it. I think it was, one of those things where I was like, nah, it's fine, it's all fine, we're not gonna pay attention to it, because I'm a teenager, who cares? But, so, growing up, let's see. I didn't have access to closed captioning, so when we had to watch films and do write down 30 facts,
Yeah.
lots of papers were incomplete. Normally I could get away with finding another person's paper and then copy it down, because we all did that here or not. But there was one time when a teacher literally made fun of me in front of the entire class, reading out my paper.
You made a video about
that.
that.
I have an entire video on that, so you can go to my channel and find that. And then really, most of the accommodations, quote, quote, that they gave me was just, sitting in the front of the class and hoping for the best.
So do they not have, special teachers that would go to school with you? Or
if they did, I think the most we had was, the special education classes. Even teachers knew about the fact that I couldn't hear very well, but, and my counselors knew, but they didn't really suggest anything. So it's just kind of I was just sitting there and kind of hoping for the best.
Yeah, so it's just okay, fend for yourself, you figure it out.
Yep, good luck. And it was just okay. So.
Wow, now I feel more grateful for the accommodations I did have, even though it was frustrating at times.
Oh yeah, now as I learn more, it's are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, I'm shocked you didn't, they didn't provide more for you. That's nuts. I mean, I went to the school for the blind for 2 years, so obviously there I didn't have one-on-one support because the whole school was designed for blind people and all the teachers were specially trained to work with blind people. So you probably could have gone to a school for the deaf but chose not to?
Yeah, it turns out that there was one, it was a little farther out, I would say a little bit more than 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes.
Mine was an hour and a half away, so I took an hour and a half bus ride there every day and an hour and a half bus ride home every day.
Yeah, for me, I would have to be driven there because I don't know if they have any buses, but the person that was mostly at home, she is a word that you could describe it to make this not so, sad and stuff. But, so yeah, in North Carolina where I live, there's the Morganton School for the Deaf, And I don't know, like I think my parents, my dad really didn't even pay attention to the whole, hearing loss thing. So like, we've even had deaf people come up to the door at our house and they'd be like, "Hi, we're teaching the ASL classes," and we'd be like, "No, thank you," and then like, that'd be the end of it. So that's pretty much my entire childhood as a deaf person in a nutshell.
Which is crazy, because to put that in perspective for my blind viewers, like, that's like your parents being like, "Oh, she doesn't need to learn Braille. Like, she doesn't need to know how to read or write." Like, that's nuts that your parent, like, that you didn't get to be able to, like, have the opportunity to learn ASL growing up, which could have probably really helped you now, so you don't have to learn now to be more a part of your deaf community.
Yeah. And, like, there's a thing where, like, most deaf kids who are mainstream, I think, like, because teachers just don't know how to teach deaf kids if they're in mainstream schools. Like, they end up graduating school with like a 3rd grade reading level for the most part. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, and like deaf programs are getting shut down even now, 2016. So it's frustrating.
Yeah.
When you learn about it.
I know. I mean, people now, Braille is kind of like a dying language. Like, now some kids aren't learning Braille in school. Instead, they're just learning how to use technology, because when I was growing up, technology wasn't where it is now. So I had to learn Braille. It was my only option. Whereas now technology is so in place, they're just teaching blind children and low vision kids how to use technology instead of learning Braille. But the problem with that is, especially if you're learning something like VoiceOver or JAWS, which is a speaking program, you're only ever listening to things and you're never actually reading them with your eyes or fingers, so you don't really learn proper grammar, proper spelling, all of these things that are so important for the English language. And because, like, English language, our words aren't phonetic. Like, our words aren't spelt the way they sound.
Oh god, that makes lip reading so difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. So it's, ugh. Anyways, another topic we wanted to cover is something I've talked about a lot here on my channel, is dating with disabilities, or relationships, friendships when you have disabilities. So I'll link my whole
Matt from Tinder.
Yeah, oh god. I don't even want to talk about Matthew from Tinder right now. But I will link my whole playlist about everything boyfriend related and dating related down below in case you want to learn more. But what has your experience been like dating? Because I know you have a boyfriend right now who can hear.
That's actually pretty much my whole entire experience with dating. Like, I'm 25 next week, and my boyfriend Devin is actually my first relationship, and we've been dating for a year and 2-3 months. It's like long distance, so it feels almost shorter than it is, I guess, but that's the thing. But I tried to get into dating like years ago, but it was difficult because like I didn't know how to explain, "Hi, I'm deaf," and then like I would like avoid trying to go out, like I was too afraid to go out. Like, even when it comes to friendships, I didn't want to go out because it was just like, oh god, I'm not gonna understand these people, and it's gonna be awkward, and oh my god, they're gonna want to go to like a bar or something, and it's gonna be too dark, and it's just annoying. Now it's a little bit easier, sort of, like with Devin, he's learning ASL, and like if I don't understand him, he'll write it down or he'll type it, the voice recognition thing.
Exactly what we talked about on your channel.
And that's pretty much it. When it comes to friendships, it's a little bit more complicated. Like, I have some friends who will type things down or write things down. Some of them tend to go the never mind route, which is like a swear word, like a big slap in the face, And then, let's see.
I don't know, like, so I've had issues growing up because I was bullied a lot. And I had issues where kids would basically, like, talk about me in front of me by doing things like typing things out about me. So I can't see what they're typing, but I know they're talking about me. Did you have issues where kids would, like, whisper about you in front of you?
Oh, they probably do.
Yeah.
Like, I know in school, when I'd be like, I had no idea what you said, and they'll kind of like, giggle, and they'd be like, yeah, and I'm like,
walk away or something.
So like, if I can see it, then I know, like I can read the facial expressions. If they do it behind my back, I don't know for sure, but probably they've done it.
Yeah, that's frustrating to me. And like, I'm sure you get this question too when you say you have a boyfriend. Oh, is he deaf too? Like, everybody just assumes that all of my boyfriends that I've had are blind. And I've never dated a blind person. But every time I'm like, oh yeah, I have a boyfriend, or I'm going on a date, it's like, oh, is he blind? I'm like, no, we don't all just date each other. Like, it's not like, oh, we only date within the community. Like, no, I can date people who aren't blind.
It's like, I can see, like, at least for us, like for the deaf community, like I know I felt like this occasionally, and I'll be like, man, I wonder what it would have been like to, you know, like date a deaf person, like they would get it, you know, like I have a friend who has a fiance that kind of doesn't get it. They're both disabled, like they have other physical disabilities, but he's hearing, she's deaf, and then whenever she tries to talk about like her, you know, complication, he doesn't really get it.
Right.
So I can understand like when sometimes like it might come up, but like just automatically like assuming, oh, he's blind, right? Like
I know, like I see how in some ways, yeah, it'd be great to have like a boyfriend who totally gets my situation and understands everything, and like I'm not really great with
but it's not a
like,
requirement.
no, it's not like I can help them to understand. I'm willing
Yeah.
to talk to them about it and educate them, and the thing is I'm surrounded by sighted people all the time, so I know how to communicate with them, and they have sight. It's really convenient. They can drive me places.
We know how to fend for ourselves.
Yes. So it's not like necessary to date. Like I'm not totally opposed to it if I fall in love with somebody who's blind or who has a different disability than me, that's fine, but it's not like I'm going out of my way to only date those people, which is what able-bodied people seem to think.
If it happens,
all
it
date
happens.
each other.
If it happens, it happens. If not, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we just had to like stop the camera and restart, so I'm sorry if there's a jump cut, but we were going to talk next about employment.
Oh,
Okay, so I know like in the blind community, the unemployment rate is more than 80%, and that's not because blind people are not educated or aren't equally as qualified, but it's actually because there was like a study, don't quote me on this, because if I can find the study, I'll link it down below. But there was a study done that basically where people, like HR departments at these companies were saying, like, we would rather hire somebody who's slightly less qualified but is sighted than hire somebody who's more qualified and blind because they're scared. Like, they don't know what accommodations they're gonna need to make, or like it's just easier to hire somebody who's sighted.
They want to save money and all of that.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because it's not like there's that many accommodations that need to be made, and chances are for applying for a job, we're willing to sit down with you and discuss what accommodations would need to be made.
And it's like if we didn't think that we could do it, we wouldn't apply
for the job.
Like, we have brains.
Yeah. What's the unemployment rate in the deaf community?
I don't know the exact number either, but definitely more than 80% last time that I checked.
Like, it's nuts. That's so not okay. More than 80% of people who are deaf or blind are living on disability support checks. Like, that's so not okay and so sad, and it's so frustrating because I have so many blind friends who constantly are applying for jobs and they're qualified for these jobs and they're not getting the positions, and it's just so frustrating. And that's what inspired me to start my own business and just go out and make YouTube videos and be a speaker and do these things and be my own boss, because I didn't, in my lifetime I've applied for 5 jobs, 3 of which I've gotten, and 2 of which I was denied specifically for my disability. So that's not a good, and like that's just, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I've never had a regular retail job. I am over 25, and I've never had a regular retail job. I've applied for McDonald's, Taco Bell, Chipotle. After 2.5 years of trying, well, like the beginning of my job search, it was like a car, and then it was, I got a car, and then, and I got an interview at Chipotle, and I was like, holy crap! And Chipotle is a very loud place, so that was gonna be a little bit of an issue, but I was gonna try anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it was the first interview in 2.5, 3 something years, maybe even 4 now when I think about it. And I went and I told them in an email, because they said if you have any questions, respond. And I go, okay, by the way, I'm deaf, so blah blah blah. Apparently nobody read the email, so then I was like, what? And basically, like, the interview was I was sitting right here, and then like you would be the interview person, and they would be constantly turning their heads around, and I'm like, literally,
I need to see your face.
I literally started to climb over the table, not like, my entire body, because that would be weird, but I like, kind of like have my upper body like stretched out.
Like
that. And needless to say, I got a second email the next day going, you're, we did right for the job, and, other than that, like, I never had, like, any emails back, no job interviews. And, that's why I started doing YouTube. And now, my deaf friends, they made, DTV News, which was, like, a segment of their DPAN thing, which stands for Deaf Professional Arts Network. And now I'm a news writer there, you know, with Blvd Tube, and then that brought opportunities. So, like you, kind of
you just have to go out and do your own thing and figure it out.
So, it doesn't make a whole lot of money, but hey, it's a lot more than I was doing before, so.
Yeah. And then another topic, final topic that we wanted to touch on is travel. So,
oh god, and this is the most frustrating thing because this is the part where then we really have to depend on other people.
Yeah.
So, and not just, you know, like a whole safety thing. You know, like please don't crash into the ocean. Ever. I can't swim.
Yeah, I travel a lot for work.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating because I travel as a blind person all the time. But people at airports don't see blind people traveling all the time, like airport staff. And it's frustrating because they'll try to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. So like they're like, take your guide dog and do this with it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this with my guide dog because this is what I always do with my guide dog when I travel. So stop trying to tell me to do something different when you've never actually worked with a guide dog at security.
And you're not blind!
And you're not blind and you don't know how it works. So it drives me nuts when they're like on a power trip and trying to tell me what to do. Or like one time I walked up to, like I was crossing into the US. So I was going up, why am I blanking on the name? Customs.
Yeah.
So I was walking up to the border and I was like being guided. So I had somebody's elbow and I had my guide dog. And my travel companion at the time was holding both of our passports and handed them to the person behind the desk. And the guy goes, you have to walk back to the line, come back up to me, and you each have to hand me your own passports. And so we were like, okay. What? So we leave, she guides me back, she hands me my passport, we walk back, and we stick our hands out, and I don't know where to put it, so I'm just like randomly like holding my hand out, not knowing where to actually put it. And he was like, oh, when you walked away, I saw that you have a guide dog, are you blind? And I was like, yeah, and he's like, I'm really sorry, like it's okay if she hands me your passport. I realize now you don't know where to hand it. I'm like, thanks, dude.
You have eyeballs, sir. Like you didn't figure this out.
Or just when I was going to VidCon, when I was crossing over, we walk up and they were like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm going to VidCon. And then after VidCon, I'm going to something called XMO where they teach like blind people how to surf and all these things. And they're like, why are you going there? And I was like, because I'm blind and I want to learn how to surf. And she was like, well, why don't you have a stick or a dog? And I was like, I have the dog. It's right here. Oh, it's so frustrating. Like, I don't know. Traveling in airports, especially with a guide dog, stresses me out.
Or maybe I'm super awesome. I don't need a dog right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm better than you.
And I have a guide.
They probably wouldn't let you in, but you know, you can think it.
Do you have challenges with like communicating?
Oh my god. I could go on and on forever, but we'll try to keep it in a nutshell. Last year, when I came here to Toronto for the first time and I was going back, basically imagine this as me also having 103-degree fever Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's goes to the hospital temperatures. And I need a lot of, you know, just, you know, type this or write this, you know, and it'll go by a lot faster than me trying to play the guessing game and the what
Especially
game?
you don't want, like, them to ask a really important question and you to mishear it. Do you have drugs on your person? Yes.
Imagine how that would go. That's exactly why customs freaks me out.
Yeah, you don't want to, like, misinterpret what they're saying. And then
exactly, I'm gonna get my ass in prison.
Yeah.
Like, no thank you. And
so you just get them to, like, write it down or type it out for you?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Like with Air Canada, you beautiful people. No. Like last year, I told them, I was on standby at this time because it was a whole like schedule fiasco, and they would just not stop talking. I'm like, no, Dad, can you type?
Still can't hear you.
Exactly, and it got to the point where I was like, hey, this is how science works. 30 seconds later, I'm literally still, Dad, write it down! I literally started screaming at Delta a couple months ago when I was on my way to either here or to New York. It was one of those weeks. And, yeah, they were very, very embarrassed, but I was like, I can't care. And then, you know, I've been offered wheelchairs, finally, which is kind of like a joke. I don't seriously want to be offered a wheelchair, but I was just like, you know, some deaf people would need wheelchairs, but just because I'm deaf, does not mean I automatically need a wheelchair. So, you know, it's just been frustrating. Airports are very, you know, audio based.
They're very loud.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay, can we get some more visual stuff happening here? Like, even with TV screens, they don't do updates on it. It's just, oh, it's a mess.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, traveling is like a huge part of my job, but it's stresses me out, especially going through the border. Like within Canada, it's easier just traveling domestically.
Yeah.
But as soon as I have to leave Canada on airplanes, it just
like when I was
stresses
coming
me out.
back here after VidCon, I
Yeah.
told the border agent, I'm like, I actually signed it this time. I was just like, I was like, hi, I'm Dad. Let's just write back and forth. And he goes, can you read lips? And I'm like, if I could read lips, I would have told you that already. No, like come
I
on.
wouldn't have signed it to you.
Like literally, dude. If I, like this goes with anybody, everybody. Like, can you read lips? I'm like, no, honey, I can't. And I'm not gonna risk it. Ugh.
Exactly. You don't want. That's the place you don't want to risk being wrong with your answers. Actually, I want to talk about service dogs because
Go for it.
there's like lots of service. Like everybody knows guide dogs for the blind. It's it's the first ever service dog. Like that's how service dogs started, with service dogs for blind people. But now they have service dogs for everything, and they have lots of fake service dogs. But we're not even going to get into that because I would be ranting for a long time. But what do service dogs for the deaf do, and would you ever want one?
It's actually a good question because I'm not really sure.
Come on, Ricky.
I don't know. I never had it. This dog over here is like, you talking about me? Really, I have no idea. I would guess, I guess if somebody's like coming behind them in public, maybe they would notify them. I do know that, like, say, if somebody, if you're at home and they're knocking on the door, then they'll run up to you. But other than that, I'm really not sure.
I think I heard there's like, if like a fire alarm goes off,
Yeah, probably.
the dog will let you know.
Yeah.
Like if a phone rings, they'll bring you to the phone.
Probably.
Something like that. If you're watching this and you know what service dogs for the deaf do, comment down below and let us
I
know.
have more
because I'm really
experience-
curious.
I have more experience with or I know more about like the flashing light alarms and
Right.
like vibrating alarm clocks underneath the bed.
Well, that's the thing that confuses me about service dogs for the deaf is like there's so much technology I've heard of that does the same thing that the dog would do.
Yeah.
And I feel like technology is more reliable
Yeah.
than a dog because at the end of the day a dog is a dog and they make mistakes, and technology, it can fail, but probably not as much as the dog. Anyways, we're done. We've been talking a long time. We're finished now. We have pizza waiting. We want to eat our pizza. So go check out Ricky's channel.
Yes, please.
If you're from Ricky's channel, please join my family and hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you here.
They're working on being accessible, so you know.
Yes, I'm slowly working on getting more captioning. I have a video where I explain why it's not on all of my videos. I'll link that down below. But slowly, I will be getting it on more and more.
Just be patient.
Videos. It's happening.
And you have hope.
It's happening. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.